And this hour, we're delighted to talk to the Shadow Education Secretary, Laura Trott, who's with me now. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us on this. So it's called the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Bill.
Yes.
And it's got a lot in it. I was wondering the extent to which, if we go through different parts of it, you agree with the wellbeing parts of the bill.
It's essentially a bill of two halves. There's one half, which is an act of pure education vandalism. It destroys all the progress we've made in improving schools over the last 2 decades, which has actually been on a cross-party basis. You have academies which were created by Blair and turbocharged under Conservative administrations. And that has led to English children being the best at reading and maths in the Western world. It is an outstanding policy success, but yet academies are being abolished in all but name as part of this bill. And we completely oppose that, and everybody should, watching this programme.
OK, so let's do it that way round then. I mean, the reason you don't like those measures is because you think it puts too central restrictions?
It's abolishing academies. It's cutting teachers' pay,
Not
for example.
explicitly.
In all but name. It's taking away their freedoms on pay, on terms and conditions, on national curriculum, on qualified teachers, some of the changes in terms of admissions. It allows the Education Secretary to intervene in academies on anything, not just a breach of a funding agreement, which is the way it was done previously. As I said, what this is tantamount to is abolishing academies in all but name, and that is terrible for the school system across the country.
Which make up what portion of the schools?
It's about 40%.
40% are academies.
Yeah.
And it adds guardrails on things like wages for teachers. It doesn't depict what they must be specifically.
No, what it's doing is saying that teachers must follow nationally set terms and conditions and pay scales. Now, research that we have done shows that there are at least 20,000 teachers who are above that at the moment, and the government cannot say what is going to happen to their pay. Their pay is going to be cut. It is not clear that the flexibility that is allowed to teachers, for example, to do a longer school day, is still going to be allowed. This is a terrible, ill-thought-through bill, which will do damage to our education system up and down the country, and it must be opposed.
On the well-being parts of the bill, the safeguarding
Yes.
of children's rights, do you support those?
There's a lot of merit in what is being put forward there. We will have lots of detailed amendments at committee about exactly how it's being implemented. But a lot of this is things that we have brought forward previously, so we do support some of it in principle, yes.
You're also planning to add an amendment to the bill to call for a full national statutory inquiry into the grooming scandal. The last one that your party commissioned took 7 years. It cost hundreds of millions of pounds and reported in 2022. In terms of just really trying to serve the victims and the families involved of this scandal and preventing it from happening again, is the quickest way of doing that, the most effective way of doing that, of having another inquiry that will take years?
So this is an evolving picture, and you're right to say that the inquiry which was set up in 2014 under us, which was much wider, by the way, it was on all forms of child sexual abuse, took a long time to report. But what it did show is that child grooming was still taking place across the country. The Grooming Gangs Task Force, which was set up as a result of that report in 2023, reported in 2024, and it said that there had been 550 arrests just in that 1 year. 4,000 children were protected as a result of the work of the Gangs Grooming Task Force. We now know that this has taken place in over 50 towns. But we don't know the exact number of victims, the exact number of perpetrators. We don't even know exactly the number of towns that this has taken place in. So we are calling for a time-limited inquiry to look at all of those questions. This will not stop work being done in the meantime to protect victims, but it is very important that we have this information, and I really hope that Labour MPs will back our calls today for a national inquiry and vote with us later.
I'm just interested to know, in terms of the sort of political point scoring on all of this, why you didn't call for it sooner, if it's truly your belief that the last report didn't do enough. Alexis Jay, who your party commissioned to do the last report, that you just said, was wide-ranging and national, said, I think the time has passed for more inquiries. We've had enough inquiries. The victims and survivors had the courage to come forward and they want action. We've set out what action is required, both locally and nationally, and people should get on with it. I mean, again, I just come back to what's triggered the calls for another national inquiry that might or might not be the right call, but the person you commissioned to do the last report is saying it's time for action that you had 2 years to implement and didn't implement in full the 20 recommendations.
So I will always sit here and say that there is more that could have been done to help support and stop victims of child sexual abuse. No government has done this perfectly. But what I would say is that we did a huge amount when we were in government. But as I said, this is an evolving picture. More is coming forward the entire time. There's been some excellent work that's been done by journalists, by police forces up and down the country to uncover more of this. There's more that's being done at a local council level as well. But we need to bring that together to truly understand what has happened here. This has been one of the biggest national scandals on grooming that we have had in this country. There have been an untold number of children affected. It was 1,400 just in Rotherham. There is much more that needs to be understood about what has happened here, and it is absolutely a legitimate policy argument to be having as to whether the national inquiry is the right thing to do. It is unacceptable to smear calls for this as far right.
So I guess with all of that in mind, and if all of that is true, did the government that you were a part of fail the victims?
As I said, this was an evolving picture. We had the wide-ranging child sexual abuse inquiry, which reported in 2022.
Which was insufficient in your words today.
No. It wasn't. It did not fully cover.
Did your government fail the victims?
So the child sexual abuse inquiry was set up in 2014. The terms of reference were established in 2015. Since those terms of reference were established, we have had numerous cases in numerous towns of horrific child grooming instances which have been uncovered and prosecuted, some of which were prosecuted, by the way, by Alex Chalk, the ex-Justice Secretary of State. There is much more information which has come to light. This is an evolving picture. There is more that we need to understand. And as a result, it makes sense to do a national inquiry alongside taking forward further steps to help support and protect victims.
I mean, I hate trying to just repeat like a scratch record or question, but putting all together what you've just said.
Yes.
You know, did the government that you were a part of fail the victims, or did that only change overnight when a new government came into power?
No, this is about, as I said, so, for example, the Gangs Grooming Task Force we set up in 2023.
So you didn't fail the victims?
No, so that reported in May 2024, so literally just before the election. That showed that 550 arrests have been made in the last year, 4,000 victims have been protected. This is about new information which is coming forward about the extent of what is happening and us needing more information to take this forward. I would like this to be done on a cross-party basis where we talk about these things, we are able to have policy debates without people calling each other names.
Laura Trott, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate it. The Shadow Education Secretary, Laura Trott there.